Hi guys, I'm Saurabh. I worked with ZS for around 2.5 years and then I moved for freelance consulting in South Africa. Hi guys, so I'm Saurabh Lal, and I have worked with ZS for around 2.5 years and then moved to South Africa as a freelance consultant. Where I was primarily working in the agricultural sector for a development firm.
Hi people, I'm Kinshu, Sultania. I'm a YLP. Worked at McKinsey Audit Center for about 2 years now in the banking and financial services vertical.
So, alright, before we start, anybody here who's a seasoned guesstimator? Somebody who's done guesstimates before? Nobody? Okay.
Okay, people who have a decent, respectable idea of
What guesstimates are, where are they used, why are they important? Anybody has heard of guesstimates? Yeah, you have. Do you want to share with us what you know about guesstimates? A little bit, anything.
So, as the name suggests, you basically guess what the estimated amount of whatever can be. So, the number of cell phones that are sold in India in a year, let's say, you can arrive at through various estimates, through various guesses.
Right. That's almost perfect. So, yeah. So, for like everybody else, we're going to cover 3 things first. What are guesstimates? Why do you need guesstimates? And how they can help you. And this is not just for people who are going into consulting. Anybody who's going into any field or marketing, sales, you're going to use guesstimates in one way or the other. So what are guesstimates? The simple answer is they're just back of the envelope calculations. So for example, if you're in sales, maybe you just want to calculate what's the rough number that you want for the sales force. So if you have a certain set of numbers in your head, once you become an expert, you can easily multiply or subtract them or add them to basically give somebody else a good answer or a ballpark of what that number should be. For example, in your Markstrat cases, right, you have that online query option. So most probably the person on the other end is actually doing a guesstimate and giving it to you. So that's the basic idea of a guesstimate, and it's just a back of the envelope calculation. Now, the why is again, one is for your interviews. So all of you are going to go into interviews and you need like guesstimates for interviews. So that's the most important reason. The second is again, you're going to use that in, everybody here is going to probably use that in one way or the other, whichever field they go into. And the how is again, I just explained to you with the example, the way that guy in Markstrat is giving you the online query. So that's the basic thing.
how many of us actually want to get into a consult job after ISB? Okay, and for the others, I think you anyway is going to use it in your job, so it's going to be like super important. Like Saurabh was mentioning the other day, someone who's going to go into brand management, I mean, they won't always have a market data. We studied in CSTAT today, we studied in marketing. You launch a new product, you have no idea about that product. So there, something like a guesstimate is going to come extremely handy. So those are key basic facts about guesstimates. We're dividing the session into 2 or 3 parts. The next part is going to be understanding frameworks about how to solve guesstimates, what are the different kinds of guesstimates. After that, we actually, and by we mean like all of us, are going to solve some guesstimate problems, and in the end, we'll figure out how we can best apply those concepts.
And before we just move forward,
Yeah.
there's some important points that you all need to remember about guesstimates. So number one, the numbers themselves are not that important. So don't get stuck on numbers ever. What is very important is the logic. So whenever an interviewer asking you a guesstimate, he's trying to test your way of thinking. He's trying to understand what logic you're bringing to the table. So do not get stuck in numbers, and because of that reason, always pick up easy numbers. So pick up something like multiples of 4 work the best, because the calculation is very easy. You'll have to multiply a lot. You might take a sheet of paper and do it, or you can just do it mentally, whichever way works. But always pick up easy numbers. That said, always check with the interviewer. So whenever you're going into an interview, a guesstimate needs to be a conversation. So for example, if Kinshu is asking me, any random guesstimate, I would ask her, these are the assumptions I'm taking. Are you okay with these assumptions? And just to give you a bit of context as to what numbers you should be using, these are the most important ones. So you should remember that the population of India is around 1.2 billion. It's 1.3. You'll find it on the net. Don't get stuck on it. 1.2 works better because it's a multiple of 4. Again, divided by income class. So because there's an increasing middle class in India, you would probably go with a 50, 20, and 30 split, where 20 is the upper, the middle class is around 50%, and the lower class is around 30%. And then also you need to remember is how are they divided by age. So again, there's more amount of young population in India, so we approximately cover around 70% in young India, and the rest of it in old India. That's around 30%. The 0 to 20 age group is around 30%. The 21 to 40 age group is around, sorry, the 25 to 40 age group is around 40%. So these are very important numbers. Just keep them in your head, and they're not that difficult to remember. So keeping these in mind, you can always pick up things very easily. So for example, if you need to find out what percentage of Indian population is upper class, so it's only 20% of 1.2 billion. That's all you need to do. Similarly, if you want to find out, say, the age group of 31 to 40, then 40% of 1.2 billion is the age group that you're basically looking at. So these are some very basic and important numbers.
So any questions for anybody right now? Are we going too fast, too slow, anything? Is anybody understanding or have basic questions about guesstimates? Okay, so what you exactly test in a guesstimate interview is highlighted here. Like Saurabh mentioned, they're not going to test you the final answer, because most of the times even they don't know the final answer. There's no final answer. They're not going to test you for the way you're approaching the question for that approach, because there is no correct approach. There are 10,000 approaches. You can approach the question from the demand perspective, from the supply perspective. You can take a top-down approach, you can take a bottom-up approach. Now I think all of us are to a certain level comfortable with the top-down and bottom-up approaches. I think we've studied a bit of this in the BCom class. Top-down approach essentially means you identify your problem. Say I want to know the number of chairs in this room. And then you break it down into smaller pieces, and then you try to solve those smaller pieces individually. Bottom-up approach is that you can think of all possibilities, and then you combine those possibilities and reach to the final answer. Or these are, say, the number of chairs in this particular room. So interviewers want communication, how clearly you're able to articulate your thought process to the interviewer when you're solving the guesstimate. They want to check your business acumen. You need to know that to arrive at a profit number and maximize profit, you need to maximize revenue and minimize cost. These basic things. They don't expect you to be an expert in healthcare or public policy if it's a government question, but they do expect you to know what is the population of India, say what is the rural-urban split, very basic demographics, and you talk to the interviewer the whole time. How clearly you structure your arguments, even if it's wrong, it's fine. If you're able to justify your answers, back up your assumptions, you're good to go. You always vet your assumptions with the interviewer. If the interviewer is like, okay, it sounds reasonable, you're good to go. So don't ever worry about your number. Just worry about whether you're covering everything, whether you're breaking down the problem in the correct way, so on and so forth. Having said that, let's practice a question.
One more quick point there. So the best thing about using an easy numbers approach is that if your number is even, if your final answer is off, it is going to be off by a factor. And in the head of the interviewer, you can easily divide it by that factor to check whether it's within the ballpark. Maybe you missed one factor here and there, but always use easy numbers because it's also easy for the interviewer to then grasp where you're coming from.
You saying something?
Can you give another example using the two approaches?
Yeah, we're going to practice a few of them. Okay. The first question is estimating the market size of TVs in India.
What would be the rural-urban split? Like you've given percentages there. Ballpark.
Yeah, last problem that I
It's
saw.
60-40 usually what we go with. 60-40
Yeah,
is the good.
30, 70, 60, 40 would be a good estimate. But don't worry, I mean, Closer to placements, you practice these a lot more. Today, just focus on getting your approach right, understanding what guesstimates are. Don't focus too much on making assumptions. Just grasp the fact that you need to make assumptions. So, these are some very basic guesstimates that we're practicing. We can break these down to the nth detail. We can add more possibilities. We can subtract possibilities. But this is a very generic case. Estimating the market size of TVs in India. Don't look at this, but if you were to estimate the market size of TVs in India, what would be the first thing that comes to your mind? Pardon? Household, exactly. Now, how do you arrive at the household's number? Nobody knows, how many households, unless you're very well versed in statistics. I know I'm not. How do you arrive at the average household's number in India? Divide what by 4? Population. Exactly. Population divided by 4. So just remember, population of India 1.3 bill, 1.2, 1.3 bill. Average Indian household 4 people, 5 people, 4 people is perfect. You arrive at the number of households. Then what?
2 TVs for each, 1 TV for middle.
Yeah. Now, how do you get what is the average number of TVs? My house has 1 or 2 TVs. Pratik's house has 10 TVs. So, how do you arrive at an average number of TVs?
Just assume that each household.
Yeah, urban rural split is one approach.
Just assume that each household has the same TV.
Yeah, but where do you put that number? One is, I like the number 7, I use the number 7. But if the interviewer asks you why the number 7, how do you think you can back it up? The way I would approach this question is I would divide the number of those households into income brackets, because I purchase TV as per my income. If I'm Pratik, I'll purchase a 1 lakh TV. If I'm someone else, I'll purchase maybe a cheap LG or something. I don't know. But lower people probably 0 to 1 TV. Middle income people probably 2 TVs. Upper income people, let's say 5, 6 TVs. So basis these assumptions, once you've gotten that vetted by people, you arrive at an average number of TV sets per family. We have the average number of households divided to number of TV sets owned by all families. Now, why do we divide it by number of years of usage of a TV set? Why do we do that?
I only buy TV every year, so I'm dividing it by number of years TV we use to get the average number.
Perfect. So I'll just take another assumption and then I'll say this is the number of TVs sold in a particular year. Perfect. Well, there's one problem with this sort of approach. This framework is correct, but what is this answer missing? Commercial. I'll just assume that in my households I'm including some sort of commercial, but you're absolutely right. If we do a residential versus commercial split, it's likely that commercial establishments have more number of TVs. So that's one point. Another point that anybody can think of. How about TV sales that are not repeat sales? I just got a job. I want to purchase a TV. I've never purchased a TV before in my life. In my household, nobody has. The population is growing. Earlier it was 10,000 people. Today it's 15,000 people. So 5,000 people are purchasing TV extra. How about individual purchases that are not repeat? So over here, if we could probably segment it into repeat purchases plus new purchases, perhaps this answer would be more relatable or more reasonable. Can anybody think of any more here?
But how does it matter? Means ultimately we are buying the number of TV, not whether it is a repeat sales or repeat.
No, absolutely. But to arrive at the number of TVs, we've assumed that one household purchases TV, like he said, every 4 to 5 years. Now, if I'm not I'm a part of that household, but tomorrow, say you get married, you start a new household, and you purchase a TV for the first time. So what you're saying makes absolute sense. But to break down the problem further and not just take the repeat TV sales perspective, you can also say fresh sales are happening. Say an NRI comes to India, that's an insignificant part, but that's still a possibility.
So that's also because maybe the interviewer wants to drill you down.
Yeah.
So it's a follow-up question that often comes around. If you're already accounting for it, then there might be another follow-up question that might come, but you're reducing the scope of those follow-up questions.
Yeah, exactly. And in consulting, especially, what happens is you draw a tree and you think of these are the 5 possibilities. Beyond this, there's no possibility. You might choose to exclude some one or two possibilities because you think the number is too insignificant or you think it doesn't suit, say, the Indian context. But when you start out, you think of all possibilities, and especially in an interview, if you try and outline these are the possibilities, you get brownies. I'll give you an example for that. I was doing my guesstimate, which told me estimate the number of tires in Delhi. I assumed 4 tires per car, okay, maybe 16 tires in a commercial truck. But then the question that was thrown at me is, what about that stepney, that extra tire? So I forgot to take that into account, and that essentially raises your number to 1/5, right? So those are the little things that may not matter much. Your approach is spot on, but if you spot that, you get brownies. So that gets really good.
So how would you go about finding out the number of new TVs?
The number of
New TVs, like
new TVs.
the ones that are not in the same.
So the simplest way that I would do it is you take population. You say population growth rate is this much. So out of the total TVs that are right now, say my population is growing at 5%. So my new purchases will grow at 5%. Hence I'll add a 5% marker to this number. So like that is the simplest way. Now this is one framework. You can break this question into n number of pieces at every step, but we're not going to do that right now. If you want, feel free to rip this apart. Like, you can totally take assumptions here and break down this number. You can take assumptions here, break down this number. You know, that way. Any questions? Do you have a question there? Any other questions on this question or so far? So shall we practice one question after this? So I've given you some, like those blue boxes were leading to a pyramid. Here are some random set of boxes where we have to estimate the number of fuel stations in Delhi basically. You guys can choose Mumbai, Chennai, whichever geography you're more comfortable with. You may choose to not use one or two of this. I would choose to use all. But how do we rearrange it to arrive at a suitable answer? If you want, you can have a totally different approach. This is one approach. But there are a zillion more approaches that we can use. So let's just take 30 seconds and figure out how we can do it. Yeah, and like if you feel some box doesn't make sense, you can add more parameters, you can add do anything you want. That is slightly different from this. Let's hear that out.
So maybe you can just go with the playground, like let's say in a city, there are around 6.
Yeah, that's a correct approach. That's also a great approach. Yeah. I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover that approach as well.
So we can divide that area into smaller suburbs or small towns.
Yeah.
And then in a town we can find 4.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is how all these numbers add up. What we're doing is essentially what we suggested. We're taking the population, we're dividing that by the car usage. I don't have a car, you're out of my market. I'm a commercial driver, you're very important to me because you get your tanks refilled much more frequently. So what I'm doing is I'm estimating the demand first and then multiplying that with, say, a supply constraint to arrive at an optimal number. So an assumption that I'm making here right now is that the current number of petrol pumps in the city are optimally present to fulfill the exact demand of the city. That is one assumption that I'm taking. You may choose to not take it if you have another approach, but that is one assumption here. In the last question also, like you notice, there are n number of assumptions. So over here, you break it down by private users, commercial users, non-users. We have number of drivers into daily usage of cars in kilometers. Again, you make an assumption here. If you want, you can break down this particular point further, saying office goers will say limited to 10 kilometers per day, and Ola driver will have that 10 kilometers multiplied by say 5 rides in a day, so that will be 50 kilometers a day. You can take any assumption that you want. Multiplied by average vehicle mileage. Again, you can take assumptions. If I have a hatchback, I don't know, is that what, 10 kilometers a day or something? A sedan is probably an 8. I don't know, a Rolls Royce is 1 or 2, I don't know. So you take that sort of assumption, capacity of a pump, again an assumption, and then ideal number of petrol pumps in the city. So this is one demand side approach. There can also be a supply side approach. Can anyone think of a supply side approach? Okay, moving on. The next one, she'd asked the question of how do we identify top down and bottom up. The two questions that we did so far, which approach do you think these two questions are following? Top down, perfect. So how do we?
What step would you take for private commercial? How would you do that?
Yeah, you just make any random assumption.
Make simple numbers. It should make sense.
Does it need to be close to the actual number?
It doesn't need to be close to the actual number. Just make sure you're confirming with the interval whether the assumption that you're taking is right.
Yeah, but if you do want an approach, then perhaps you can say lower income segment in Delhi is about 30% who don't own a car. So that 30% goes entirely here. Then you say the next 20% are mid-income people, out of which a proportion of them would be drivers. Plug that here. Others are all private. I would plug maybe 50-60% there. So it's like that.
I wouldn't worry about this now because it's a lot of time to pass. So like at a first level, if you get the concepts right here, then I think we're good right now.
Okay. Now, that was top down. That was a market sizing question. So till now, what are the three? Yeah.
What will be the bottom up approach for this?
That's what you have to be. So basically, in my experience, there are three kinds of guesstimates that interviewers have tended to ask me. One is the market sizing approach. Tell me the number of diapers used in India, tell me the number of TVs sold, tell me the number of cars sold in Mumbai, stuff like that. Then we have the profit revenue cost type of questions. What is the revenue of petrol pump in a given area? What would be the cost to produce a Boeing A3, an Airbus A380, stuff like that. That would be your cost. Tell me the profit that ISB is making in a given year, considering all PGP, PGP Pro, all batches. So that is another estimation that you have to do. And the third kind are absolutely above my head kind of questions, very vague, they don't fit anywhere. An example would be, how many coins are there in CP right now? I mean, Delhi, I don't know, Colaba Causeway, how many coins are there? How many people are wearing red in ISB right now? There is no answer. There is like no approach. It all matters how you approach the question, how well you're able to clarify the question. And by clarification, I mean, what do you mean wearing red? If I'm wearing red top to bottom, does it count as 4 pieces? Does it count as 1 pieces? If I'm wearing pink, purple, maroon, I mean, how do I define red? How do I define ISB? Are we limiting it to this room? How are we limiting it? So the first thing that you got to do in these vague kind of questions is scope it out. That's very important. Just scope it out. And sometimes during scoping, the interviewer will give you insights. And they'll just say, this is what you're going to do. And that's the approach that you take. But in this question, this is one of those revenue kind of questions. Now, how do we arrive at revenue? What is revenue? Simple formula for revenue. Price by quantity. The estimated quantity in the previous question, you make a price assumption, multiply the two, you get revenue. Simple. But how do we do it using bottom-up?
Take an assumption that a petrol pump has about 4 outlets. So in a peak time,
Let's just limit it to one petrol pump. Say, I mean, nearest to
so
ISB.
it's like, so one outlet can, for example, take 5 minutes to fill. Take the utilization time in peak and non-peak hours. You multiply it, you get the number of cars, multiplied by 4 number of petrol pumps. Revenue of a petrol pump, right? So yeah, you can make
Bang
it.
on. So that is one of the simplest and good approaches to measuring this. Brownies, I mean, how can we make this better? What are the other sources? Is fuel the only source of revenue for a petrol pump? No. So what are the other sources of revenue? The what? Yeah, what else? The red, perfect. What else? Yeah. So bottom-up approach means you identify the different sources of revenue that there are. Fuel is one. Then you tell them advertisements are one. Then you tell them rent is Then you tell them ancillary, like all the oils and like mobile oils, they said that is one. And then when you pick up all of these three or four things, and you think it's fairly messy, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, and all of us, I think, become class. Then you go and solve each type of question. So that will be your bottom-up approach. You make quantity assumptions, you make price assumptions, you make sales assumptions, you make any and every assumption on top of the word. And that's how you solve a bottom-up question. Any questions so far?
Can you repeat that? The bottoms up approach.
Yeah, sure. So top-down basically means you take one problem and you break it down into smaller parts and you go as deep as you can while solving it. Bottom-up approach is you take those last pieces, make sure that you're covering everything that you can think of in the universe. So for example, to calculate a petrol pump revenue, fuel isn't the only factor. So when you're picking up the bottom pieces, you think, okay, fuel is one. Then you think rent is one. Then you think advertisements, those billboards that we see, that is one. They sell the oils and other ancillary products, sometimes that is one. So you think, okay, these are the products. Then you build on them. How can I club these products together, arrive at a bigger picture, and then you finally say, okay, this is my revenue. Because I sold 5 liters of petrol at 70 rupees a liter or stuff like that. Say out of my total revenue, you see 5% or 10% is my ad revenue. You say 20% is my rent revenue, stuff like that. You make assumptions, get it vetted by the interviewer, and that's when you give them your final answer. So again, what did we, that in this question, we basically saw that numbers are important, approach is important, but what's more important is how out of the box you're thinking. What are the other things that you can think of apart from fuel that will give them revenue? What are the kind of assumptions that you're making? Your assumption is wrong, it's fine. I know shit about oil and gas. Probably Prerit will know more than the interviewer on this question. But that's what matters. How are you thinking? Because when you go out there in the world, you become a consultant. You'll have access to data. You won't have data for something. But till the time you don't know what data to look for, it's all in waste. So you need to know, this is my framework. These are the data that I need. And if that data is not there, then how can I guesstimate it to